Hi friends, I'm John Merrill and welcome back to Brainstorming America. This week's edition is another action-packed, issue-packed discussion about things that are so important to you each and every day in your daily lives. I'm excited to be back with my friend and colleague once again, Ken Rollins. Ken, how's it going, friend?
Well, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. And it is packed with a lot of, I hope these subjects are subjects that are near and dear to the hearts of all of our viewers out here. And so I'm just going to pop off some and you give me your take on the subject. And the first thing I'm going to talk about, and this is not Obamacare we're talking about, but we're talking about doctors and the patients, put them back in charge of our health care and not the politicians.
Ken, individuals need to be able to make the choices that are necessary for their personal health care. They don't need to be told by the federal government or the state government what course of action they need to take. It needs to be between them and it needs to be between their doctors. We want each and every person to receive some level of insurance so they'll be able to properly pay for the problems that are introduced to them, and then that way they'll be able to do something with their resources other than have to pay medical bills all the time. But what we don't need is for us to be told exactly where those resources have to be spent with a particular doctor or a particular health care provider, as opposed to that individual making their own choice.
Absolutely. I don't even understand why, with all the things that the government's got to take care of, that they would start meddling. And that's what it is meddling in our health care. And I say, I've got diabetes, and there's so many regulations on. I hear them talking about the cost of insulin and all that thing, but being a disabled veteran I don't have to worry about my insulin. But if I had to buy it, it would be a pretty expensive thing. But I don't want some senator paying for my insulin as a tool to negotiate for some roads or bridges that might be built somewhere. So that's what I'm hearing.
Ken, look, we have always been recognized as the world leader in health care. You could get the best health care anywhere in the world in the United States. That's what we want to continue to be the case. It's not about having insurance, it's about having proper health care. Obviously, it's about trying to be able to pay for that health care, and insurance is a very large and important component of that. But the most important thing is to make sure that the quality of the health care provided in every state in the union, in all 67 counties in Alabama, is the equivalent of what the patient decides he or she actually wants. And that those individuals that are providing that health care have been properly trained, properly certified, they know what they're doing in that environment, and they are able to help you get well so you can return to your daily life the way that you want to live it.
That's exactly right. And I see a lot of the debate, I watch too many of them, I guess, between Congress and witnesses. And when I see, it goes back even to the abortion issue of saying where the government's, what I've seen is the government don't want to be involved in that, but they say, okay, go back to the states. But I mean the government, I speak of the government as the federal government, and they've turned it back to where it should be, to the states. But I hear the other side, woe is us, a woman can't decide what she wants to do. But I go back to the Senator Schumer thing. We would have the population that he says we need. He was talking about we need to bring more illegal immigrants in here because we're not reproducing. And I go back to we are reproducing, but abortion cancels out the amount of production. The babies that are born never get the chance to say, I wanted to do this when I grow up, or I wanted to be there to work at this factory. I wanted to do this to have my own business. That child never has a chance to make that decision. So we don't have the government making decisions, but we got people making decisions for the babies, and then we got people making decisions for the mama, and the government needs to bow out. I think it would turn out to be a lot better thing for the baby anyhow.
No doubt about it, my friend. And I'll remind you again of a quote that I shared earlier when I said that Ronald Reagan introduced this thought at one time when he said, I always find that the people that promote abortion are people that have already been born.
Absolutely, yeah. And I noticed that after I saw that written somewhere, and I got thinking, those people that make these decisions, and I have to wonder, John, what goes through the minds of a young woman in given the choice that the baby is more than 4 months, and that's already half being born. It's half of the 9 months. How did they make a decision to say, oh, that's going to mess with I had plans to go to college, I had this plan to do this, but I'm just going to, I thought this governor of Virginia say, we'll take the baby and we'll lay it on the table, make it comfortable, and we'll decide with the mother what to do with it. Think about that. We'll take this baby, not a gob of sales, but we'll take this baby and lay it on the table and then discuss it with the mother. Do we or don't we? Whatever. I just can't fathom that. That's just not human.
No, it's not human, and it's not biblical either.
There you go. I think you hit right on what we needed to talk on right there. We got to go to a break, come back, and we're going to talk more about things that you need to know that we feel you need to be brought to speed to. We'll be right back.
Friends, welcome back to our second segment of the show. We're excited to continue our discussion about the things that you have made it clear you want us to be talking about here on Brainstorming America. Ken?
Thank you, John. And we are excited about it because there's nothing that I know of in the state of Alabama that is talking to you about the things that we've been talking about the past few days. These are things that are, I guess the common word is tabletop issues, kitchen table issues, or whatever you want to call them, that these are things that affect you, your family. So, John, I want the next item I want to talk about is something that's very important out there, and it probably don't hit the table that often, but it's trade deals that protect and American workers and protect our national security. That's just a subject I'd like to deal with.
Ken, look, our country has proven throughout our almost 250 years of history that we can compete with any nation in the world whenever we have a level playing field. When we don't, we have to operate at a deficit, just like we have with China, like we spoke about in a recent show. But we've got to make sure that the playing field is even. I was very, very fortunate to attend the signing of the U.S., Canada, Mexico, Canada trade agreement back in February of 2020 when President Trump was in office that leveled the playing field. We have got to make sure that when our goods are going to another country and their goods are coming to our country, that they're treated the same way. We just want to make sure that we're given a fair chance to compete. And when we are, Americans will always come out on top.
That was for the folks that remembers the NAFTA. That was the ugliest acronym I've ever heard of. I think Bill Clinton was the one that...
He was president then. North America Free Trade Agreement.
And it was like, those of you, especially in Alabama, you remember the cotton mills, the
sock mills in Fort Payne, Alexander City, Russell Mills.
Sylacauga.
I mean, how many different entities can we name where people that we know, that we love, that we care about worked? Many times families and generations had worked there that are no longer in operation,
Absolutely.
that are now gone. They went to Mexico. They went to other parts of the world where they could compete because they offered free or cheap labor as opposed to our people being compensated at a fair wage for the quality products that they were producing.
I'm a product of that. When I got out of the service in '69, there wasn't a whole lot of jobs, but the cotton mills were hiring. And I went to work. It paid good money. It was hard work, but you could make a decent wage. But then all of a sudden, this one was in Woodland, right outside of Birmingham. And next thing you know, it's gone, closed, shuttered. And the closest one was Sylacauga, I think, of that. And some of us could transfer to there. But I watched it personally, what it done to people around me. It was a place that many of us, only few people could get a job. There wasn't that many jobs available during that time. And when they did, that was an unfair trade deal, if there ever was one, was NAFTA. So glad to see that that come back. But that was during the time when Trump was saying to the NATO, you're not paying enough for your share. UN, you're not paying enough for your share. And everybody is going to come to the table is going to pay for their share. That's when he kept that same thing going. He making China pay tariffs. He was making businesses, everybody that's taking money out of America, you got to put some back.
Well, and Ken, if we're not encouraging them and requiring them to do that, then we're actually putting our people in a hole. We're making sure that our people are given an unfair disadvantage as they try to compete with these international trade partners. What good is that? That's not the reason why we want to have a trade agreement with another country. We want to have a trade agreement with another country so our goods and services can go there, enable them to see how fine American technology, how fine American products, how fine American foods are, so they will want to purchase more and more. Not to put us in a hole where we have to pay certain fees or tariffs to get out of it in order to just move our products simply so that we can say that we're in a trade agreement with them.
In addition to the trade, the economics of that, we got a security issue that it's in the middle of all of that. That whoever we're trading with, we can't let our guard down. That allow them inside, because you can kill a country with your trade deals.
Absolutely, and if you're not prepared for that and what it means with the infrastructure that's involved, with all of the different items that are necessary in order to make sure that the appropriate trade options are being exercised, then the mom and pop shops will be put out of business. And when the time comes for those kitchen table talks to occur, they'll be talking about why we're now looking for another job instead of able to stay at the job that I've been in for 2 decades, and why Johnny, who is looking forward to starting a position at that job when he graduated high school, will no longer have that as an option.
The job won't be there.
Yes, sir.
That's what granddaddy, and everybody else worked there. That's where the Avondale Mills. You remember them?
Yes, sir.
That's where I worked, and I don't even know if they still exist, but I did. There's so many people in my family, so many generations, it seems like, had worked at either Avondale or one of the competitors, and it was not looked down upon to be working at a cotton mill. I mean, like
Look,
I said,
Ken, when you were growing up and when I was growing up, it was never looked down on to have a good job, to be able to provide for your family, and to be able to do so in a quality environment where your friends and your family had worked for decades, because that was the American way.
Yeah, absolutely. I did that, and serving the country was another thing that came along with that. Militarily, like you found people that were out of the cotton mills, went right on into the service, and it was a different world we had back in those days. And so we're gonna take another break here and pay some bills, and we'll be right back. Get your pen. Welcome back to Brainstorming America, and we are brainstorming with the Alabama State.
Whatever he is.
Whatever he is. There you go.
That's right.
Let's go with it. We all know it's John Merrill. I just wanted to make sure. A lot of times I'll say he's the Secretary of State, and people is he a Secretary of State of Missouri or whatever. But I wanted to make sure I got all that in there, and we've been working hard today, folks. So give me a break, John. When we were talking earlier, we covering all the points that we can think of that would benefit our viewers. And one of them is the tax cuts that we've had. A lot of people don't even realize that those are not permanent. We need those tax measures, permanent so our people can benefit.
Not only that, Ken, all people can benefit. And the thing that we need to remember is that we know better what to do with our own money than the federal government does. You know, when I was a member of the Alabama legislature, people would ask me, are you going to vote for higher taxes? And I said, look, I'm never opposed to voting for more taxes, but I will only vote for more taxes when I know that all the money that's being sent to Montgomery is being spent appropriately, efficiently, and effectively. And the longer that I served in Montgomery, the more that I realized that day was probably never going to come. And that's the reason why I never voted for a tax increase. It's not that I'm opposed to tax increases, it's that I'm opposed to the wasteful use of resources that have been sent by hardworking Alabamians to Montgomery and to Washington and being wasted by politicians in Montgomery and Washington for pet projects, for inefficient means, for private concerns that are not designed to benefit all the people in an effective and efficient way. That's why it's always best to give the money back to the people that sent it to you originally. That's the reason why we need these tax cuts made permanent.
How do you think that we could do that? 'Cause don't we all know that the government can spend our money better than we can? And that's what they think?
Well, again, I keep going back to our President Ronald Reagan, who's a favorite of yours and a favorite of mine. But President Reagan said very eloquently, we don't have a problem with money. We've got a spending problem. We don't have a resource problem in Washington, and we don't. If we just took advantage of the resources that are already given to us, then we would be able to do everything we need to do efficiently and effectively.
And Reagan would always say, will. He had the simplicity. This was one of these guys that come out of the movie business. Oh, he can't be a governor of California. He's a movie star.
Well, he's one of the best in the history of the state.
I lived there under governor.
And one of the best in the history of the republic.
Absolutely. And it was California. It was not the California it is now.
Yes, sir.
And we didn't have all the, when I lived in Ventura, there was a thing called forest management. And sometime when you're on here, I'd like for us to get into that, because I could advise California by saying, manage your forest. Right here where we're doing this show, Cheehaw Mountain, just right up to the right, there's not many weeks go by that there's not some smoke coming up.
Sure.
They manage it. They burn to keep it from burning.
That's right.
And they manage, and they take plows in there and they cut, and they put it to where if a fire does come through, it won't jump here.
Look, Ken, our foresters that have been educated and trained by Auburn University, by Mississippi State University, by Alabama A&M University, by Tuskegee University, all these institutions of higher learning in our states and neighboring states that help prepare our people to know how to properly manage forest need to be allowed to do so, because they're doing it so effectively in Alabama. They also need to do it in other states around the union who apparently are not getting the word as to how that needs to be done. And those states that are in the West are the biggest perpetrators, and that's why we have issues out there all the time.
Yeah. If you got 300 acres and you don't have any cutaways in the middle, no dividers, then you're going to burn all 300 acres. Just take it to the bank. And since I lived out there when the winds would come in, you drop something, it was 300 acres in just a snap. But when I was out there, they didn't have that. I mean, it was the other governors spent money on that. Well, these come in, the woke governors have come in and said, oh, we don't want to kill the little frogs down there, and we don't want to upset the little rat. The long-tailed rat lives in the suburbs of San Bernardino and others, and they will not let you dig or plow in there because you're going to upset the living habits of a long-tailed rat.
Ken, look,
I said rat.
Look,
you heard me, didn't you?
It's very clear that with some of these woke governors, woke elected officials, and woke politicians, they need to be put back to sleep. They need to go to sleep so when they wake up the next time, they'll be better prepared to understand what's actually going on. The fact that they're woke is obviously a problem. They were interrupted in their sleep, and now they can't function properly. We need to make sure that they get the rest they deserve, and one of the ways to do that is to make sure that those people are sent home after the election cycle, so they'll be able to have people who are thinking people replace them in Washington and in their state capitals.
Yeah, our CEO here, Todd Davis, wanted us to talk about one day about the water situation. California's got a water problem that could be remedied. This is not, I mean, they got water that they will not let it, they won't even let the fields get water to farmers because there's critters that live in that area that might be doomed for if you put water in there, but with no consideration for the people's livelihood in that area.
Look, Ken, Charles Darwin talked about that specifically in Survival of the Fittest, and if they cannot acclimate to the new environment, then apparently it's not the Lord's will for them to continue to live. So what we need to do is to make sure that we're protecting those people who are thinking people, who understand what the environment controls need to be, and so we can provide for humans and we can provide for people that can improve our climate options, improve our opportunities for growth in the economy, and improve our quality of life throughout the world.
And it sounds so simple that I think you and I should just go out to California and spend a little time with the governor out there and say, hey, if you'll just do A, B, C, and D, you'll be all right one day. John, I really appreciate this, man.
Yes, sir.
I hope the folks out there have got something out of what we've done, and we're going to do this some more, right?
Look forward to being with you again soon.
Promise?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I'm going to be looking for it when we're going to go out, and so you keep watching for the station that you're watching this on now, and we'll be, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said, we'll be back. I'll be back. John will be back, and you just remember to keep looking for us. We're gone.